One spark. One spark is all it took to destroy an entire city. Imagine, it's the turn of the century in the new southern city of Jacksonville. This buzzing metropolis was known for exporting lumber, cotton, oranges, and vegetables. Things seemed to be looking bright for the city that had just recovered from the crippling yellow fever epidemic.
And Jacksonville in 1900 had a population of about 28,000 people, and it was the largest city in the whole state.
On May 3rd, 1901, workers gathered outside the Cleveland Fiber Factory around noon to eat lunch. Food was cooking on a stove near a platform filled with dry Spanish moss. What happened next would change the course of history for the city of Jacksonville. A small spark from the wood stove found its way to the dry moss, igniting it into flames. Workers tried to put the fire out, but the building was made of pitch pine wood and the factory was packed full of the moss. This, along with high winds, made for the perfect conditions for the fire to spread quickly. Once the workers realized that there was no way to put out the fire, they called the fire department. Fire Chief Thomas W. Haney quickly realized that there was little chance of containing the fire. He even sent telegrams to other Florida and Georgia cities for reinforcements, but realized it was too late. The half-mile wide fire was already roaring through the streets, destroying everything in its path. Chaos ensued. People fled east in search of safety, carrying their most valuable possessions. They soon realized that they had to abandon their possessions in order to escape and ended up losing everything. Streets were completely impassable and glowed red from the intense heat. Buildings were crumbling like eggshells. All valuables inside were destroyed. Churches, schools, government buildings, and even homes no longer stood intact. The Hubbard building was of significant concern because it contained dynamite and gunpowder. People even jumped into the harbor when word spread that the nearby gasworks building was going to explode.
The one building it's not a building actually, it's a Confederate monument in Hemming Park that was dedicated in the 1890s in memory of Confederate soldiers, and it didn't burn in the fire. In fact, it turned bright red. It heated up to a red hot level, but didn't burn.
Many people had fled to the Windsor Hotel. However, by 3:20 p.m., the hotel was in flames, and people barely got out alive. Everyone realized that stopping the catastrophic fire was impossible. The fire was so massive that the glare could be seen in Savannah, Georgia, and spirals of smoke could be viewed from as far away as North Carolina. Some people gave up hope of survival, believing that God was angry with Jacksonville and prepared to die. Others, however, helped people by opening their homes to those that had lost everything and helping anyone in need. The capital city of Tallahassee received news of the fire through a Western Union telegram that was handed to Napoleon Bonaparte Broward from the House of Representatives, who owned a home in Jacksonville. Florida Governor William Jennings sprang into action and immediately sent a special train of troops to help with the rescue and order. Representative Broward went along to assist. By 8:30 p.m., the fire department announced that the fire was under control. After the devastating events of the day, people camped wherever they could find a place to sleep. Food, water, and space were shared among strangers. 8 hours, 500 acres, 23 churches, 10 hotels, 8,700 homes, 150 city blocks, 2,400 buildings, and all public records. Miraculously, only 7 people lost their lives in the fire. Property damage was estimated at $15 million. After the fire, Jacksonville residents like to say that on Friday they had a fire, on Saturday they recovered, on Sunday they worshipped, and on Monday they issued the first building permit for the reconstruction of their city. Immediately the next morning, a meeting was called to order to put plans in place to rebuild the city and donate goods to those in need free of charge. 11 commissaries were formed in various sections of the city, feeding about 10,000 people a day. Items such as bedding, clothing, household necessities, and tools were distributed. As cleanup progressed, people out of work were employed to repair the city. The federal government supplied 12,000 tents, so all homeless residents were temporarily sheltered. Representative Broward was instrumental in rebuilding Jacksonville. He founded the Jacksonville Relief Association, which helped people who lost everything. He also formed plans to introduce bills to the legislature to rebuild schools and provide for other improvements. He hurried back to Tallahassee ready to do just that. Because of the support from Florida's government, as well as Jacksonville's residents, the city made a strong recovery from what was recorded as the largest metropolitan fire in the South.
People coming together, the leadership coming forth, and the people who supported the leadership, it brought the community together in a way that might not have been there before. And you know, it's not tangible. You can't measure community spirit. But within a few years after the fire, there was tremendous enthusiasm in Jacksonville for the progress it had made.
6 months after the fire, the city's triumph began when it hosted the Florida State Fair. The people of Jacksonville began to capitalize on the tragedy by giving tours of the burned city. By then, already more than half the homes and a third of the offices and shops had been rebuilt. By the end of the year, Jacksonville was still not completely back to normal, but the city had recovered well. Money from insurance and government bonds helped to boost the economy, shaping the next 15 years of prosperity in Jacksonville.
So you had, the fire was a stimulus in one way for development. Now, would have happened without the fire? Quite possibly, because in the first chapter of the book I talk about Jacksonville 1900. It was coming along as a prosperous small city. But in the long run, I think the fire stimulated greater growth.
Through the ashes of tragedy arose the great modern city of Jacksonville, which today ranks the most populous city in the state with nearly 1 million residents and solidifies one of the greatest triumphs in Florida's history.